There's a $5 clay pot trick that creates refrigeration temperatures and desert heat without a single watt of electricity. But the $100 billion appliance cartel spent decades making sure you never discover this ancient physics hack. This is the lost blueprint. The power grid goes down, a storm hits, or rolling blackouts begin. Within 48 hours, everything in your $2,000 refrigerator rots. You're brainwashed to believe keeping food cold requires a massive metal box and constant paid electricity. The appliance and energy industries make billions keeping you tethered to the grid. You pay thousands for a modern refrigerator engineered to break down in 5 years. You pay hundreds monthly in electric bills to run it. But when the grid fails, that expensive machine becomes a useless plastic coffin for rotting food. The solution costs $5, 2 clay pots, sand, and water. The temperature inside drops to refrigeration levels using zero electricity. Ancient desert engineers in the hottest climates on Earth kept meat and vegetables cold in blistering heat. They understood thermodynamics, specifically evaporative cooling. They used nature's elements to create freezing temperatures from thin air. But the modern appliance industry buried this physical law. They cannot monetize wet sand and clay. They engineered total dependency, hiding the fact that you do not need grid connection for refrigeration. They want you terrified of blackouts, blindly paying your utility tax. Here is how evaporative cooling works. When water evaporates, it requires energy. That energy is pulled directly from surrounding materials as heat. This is why sweat cools your body. As water evaporates from your skin, it removes heat. The Zeer pot amplifies this principle using porous clay and sand. Terracotta clay is naturally porous. Water seeps through it slowly. When you saturate sand between 2 clay pots, water continuously moves through the outer pot's walls. Hot, outside air hits the wet clay surface. Water evaporates. That evaporation steals massive amounts of heat from the inner pot. The temperature inside drops drastically, often 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit below outside air temperature. The physics is elegant. Every gram of water that evaporates removes approximately 540 calories of heat energy from the system. This is called latent heat of vaporization. In a typical Zeer pot, with wet sand between 2 terracotta layers, hundreds of grams of water evaporate daily in hot climates. That means tens of thousands of calories of heat continuously pulled away from your food storage. The porous clay acts as a wick, constantly drawing water from the saturated sand to the outer surface where evaporation occurs. The sand acts as a reservoir, holding water and maintaining contact with both pot surfaces. The inner pot remains cool because heat cannot accumulate. It is constantly being stolen by evaporation. Materials needed are simple. 2 unglazed terracotta pots. 1 large, approximately 12 to 14 inches in diameter. 1 medium, approximately 8 to 10 inches in diameter. The medium pot must fit inside the large pot with at least 2 inches of space between them all around. 1 bag of play sand, 25 to 50 pounds depending on pot size. Water, total cost under $5 at any garden center. Construction method is straightforward. First, if your pots have drainage holes in the bottom, plug them. Use clay, cork, or waterproof tape. You want to contain the water inside the sand layer. Place a 2-inch layer of sand in the bottom of the large pot. This creates a stable base. Position the medium pot centered inside the large pot. The rims should be roughly level. Now fill the gap between the 2 pots completely with sand. Pack it gently, but do not compress it, and leave about 1 inch from the top. Slowly pour water into the sand until completely saturated. The sand should be thoroughly wet, but not creating standing water on top. The water will seep through the outer pot's walls and begin evaporating immediately. Place your food items inside the inner pot. Vegetables, fruits, dairy, meat. Cover the top with a damp cloth or towel. This keeps humidity inside and accelerates cooling. The cooling effect begins immediately but reaches maximum after several hours as the entire system equilibrates. In hot, dry climates, the inner pot can reach 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, while outside air is 95 degrees. In humid climates, the effect is less dramatic but still significant. The drier the air, the faster evaporation occurs, the more cooling you achieve. Maintenance is simple. Check the sand daily. When it feels dry to the touch, add more water. In extreme heat, you may need to add water twice daily. The damp cloth covering the top should stay moist. Re-wet it as needed. That is the entire maintenance protocol. No moving parts, no repairs, no electricity bills. This technology saved lives across multiple continents. In Nigeria during the 1990s, a teacher named Muhammad Ba Abba revived the ancient Zeer pot design. He distributed thousands to rural farmers with no electricity access. Food waste dropped by 90%. Families could store vegetables for weeks instead of days. He won international awards for reintroducing forgotten physics. But this was not new technology. Ancient Egyptians used similar clay vessel cooling systems 4,000 years ago. Persian engineers built elaborate evaporative cooling towers called wind catchers that cooled entire buildings. Indian communities stored water in clay pots, knowing evaporation kept it cold. Middle Eastern traders transported perishable goods across deserts using layered clay containers with wet sand. The knowledge existed everywhere. Hot climates demanded food preservation without mechanical refrigeration. But in wealthy nations, this knowledge was systematically erased. The appliance industry needed recurring revenue. Refrigerators with compressors, Freon, and complex electronics create dependency. When they break, you call repair technicians or buy new units. The planned obsolescence is engineered. Components fail predictably. Repair costs approach replacement costs. You stay trapped in the purchase cycle. A clay pot and sand generate zero recurring profit. No subscription model. No planned obsolescence, no spare parts market, no service contracts. The industry could not allow this alternative to remain in public consciousness. The financial impact is undeniable. Your refrigerator consumes 15 to 20% of your total home electricity. That is $50 to $100 monthly. Over 10 years, that is $6,000 to $12,000 just to keep food cold. Over a lifetime, you spend tens of thousands. The $5 Zeer pot costs nothing to operate. Zero monthly fees, zero maintenance costs beyond occasional sand and water. Even if you rebuild it annually with fresh pots, you spend $5 per year versus thousands. But the real value appears when the grid fails. Hurricanes, wildfires, infrastructure attacks, rolling blackouts. When electricity stops, your expensive refrigerator dies instantly. Food spoils within hours in summer heat. Meat rots, dairy sours, vegetables wilt. You lose hundreds of dollars of groceries. The Zeer pot keeps running. Your food stays preserved. Your family keeps eating. You have thermal independence. During extended outages lasting days or weeks, this difference means survival versus desperation. Effectiveness varies by climate and food type. Vegetables and fruits store excellently. Tomatoes last 2 weeks. Carrots, 3 weeks. Leafy greens 5 to 7 days. Cucumbers 10 days. Peppers 2 weeks. Root vegetables even longer. Dairy products stay fresh several days. Milk remains drinkable 3 to 4 days. Cheese lasts a week or more. Butter stays solid and fresh. Raw meat requires more caution. In very hot climates, consume meat within 24 to 48 hours. In moderate temperatures, meat can last 3 to 4 days. The Zeer pot is not a replacement for long-term meat storage, but it dramatically extends freshness compared to no refrigeration. Placement matters significantly. Position your Zeer pot in the shadiest, coolest location available. Avoid direct sunlight, which adds heat and accelerates water evaporation without useful cooling. A covered porch works well. Under a tree provides natural shade. North side of a building stays cooler. Good airflow helps tremendously. The evaporating water needs to be carried away by air movement. Stagnant air becomes saturated with moisture, slowing evaporation. A breezy shaded spot is ideal. Some users add a small battery-powered fan nearby to increase airflow, though this defeats the zero electricity advantage. Optimization techniques exist. Using finer sand increases surface area contact, improving cooling. Wetting the outer pot surface directly speeds initial cooling. Wrapping the outer pot in burlap soaked in water dramatically increases evaporation surface area. Some builders use 3 nested pots instead of 2, creating dual sand layers for enhanced insulation. Others add salt to the sand, which lowers water's freezing point and increases evaporative cooling efficiency. Limitations exist. This is not a freezer. You will not create ice or frozen food. This is refrigeration, keeping food cool enough to slow bacterial growth and prevent rapid spoilage. In extremely humid climates, above 80% humidity, evaporation slows significantly and cooling effect diminishes. But even in humidity, you gain preservation time. Coastal regions see less dramatic cooling than inland deserts, but the principle still functions. The modern world convinced you that refrigeration requires grid power, complex machinery, and expensive appliances, that you are helpless without electricity. But the physics proves otherwise. Evaporative cooling is a fundamental thermodynamic principle. Water evaporation removes heat, clay allows water passage, sand holds water. These elements exist everywhere. Ancient engineers understood this. They survived brutal desert heat without power companies or appliance stores. They built thriving civilizations in climates that would kill modern grid-dependent populations within days of power loss. True self-reliance means your family does not starve when the grid fails. You should never be held hostage by a power outage. By building this $5 ancient device, you reclaim thermal sovereignty, protect your food supply permanently, and bypass the fragile grid entirely. The clay pot at the garden center is more powerful than $1 billion in appliance industry marketing. Because the truth is simple. When you understand evaporative cooling, you do not need the grid. This is the lost blueprint. The vault is open. The knowledge is yours. Take your food security back.